folks, Captain Mike here from Hogy Lure Company. For today's Hogy how-to, I want to talk about topwater fishing for false albacore. Now, this reminds me of a Salty Cape TV shoot we did in early September, where you can watch the full video up here, where we needed a long-range lure to get to some very finicky albies in windy conditions. So in my mind, we needed a lure that was easy to cast, long range, and easily seen, and ideally a topwater presentation. So in my mind, that called for the Hogy Surface Eraser, which I often describe as a lure that casts like a jig, but fishes like a topwater soft bait. So on this day, the albies were, being a little finicky, as they're known to be in shallow water, and we needed to, get to them from far away. Rather than me tell you about it, let's take it to the tape. So the lure we're using today is the Hogy Surface Eraser. Now this is a relatively new design. You can see this is a little worn-torn from albie fishing and some bycatches, some bluefish. Now a couple cool things going on about this lure. One is keel weighted in the aft, so it just launches for casts. It's through wired, so it's definitely plenty strong. Features an inline VMC super sharp single hook, which is great for easy release and minimal fish injuries. Now, this lure is really designed for distance, but it's also very versatile in terms of how you can fish it. Now, there's three primary ways you can fish this. One, what we like to call the skippy retrieve. Number two, the soft bait retrieve, which is a dance and dart, sort of erratic action. And then lastly, we'll dub the needlefish retrieve, which is pretty much just a straight retrieve with the tip pointed toward, maybe even in the water. That's just a steady crank. You can do that fast or you can do it slow. So let's start with the skippy retrieve. Now the skippy retrieve, what I'm going to do is launch this out there. I said earlier, the keel weighted, this lure just wants to go. So it's going to load up on this rod. You can see it's going. I only hit the water. This is a fairly heavy outfit, about 30-pound test braid, Saragosa 5000. So you can see I have my tip pointed toward the sky, and a lot of twitching motion in a medium to medium fast retrieve. Now the further you have this lure out, the faster you're going to need to reel it to get it to jump. But as you get closer and the line angle gets more tight, you can slow it down a little bit. But what's happening is this bait is just hopping in and out of the water. I don't know if you've ever seen a squid getting chased by a striper, but that same sort of oh shoot, that flee motion, and that's what you're trying to create with this. Now today we are fishing in an area where there was probably more bait than albies, and there's two ways to go. One, match the hatch, or two, an attractor lure. Now this lure with this retrieve is going to create a lot of commotion, and so that means it's going to be a good blind cast lure. It's going to make a lot of noise, a lot of splash, be very visual, and so it's a good retrieve to create some commotion. As you can see, that bait's just fleeing, hopping in and out of the water. Now the second cast is what I'm calling the soft bait retrieve, and so you cast that out. Now this lure, I'm just going to stop it so it's not a super long cast. It wants to go, and my tip pointed toward the water at a 45-degree angle, and see I'm twitching it. But you'll notice that my retrieve is much slower than with the skippy version with the tip up. My rod tip's pointed toward the water. I'm going to call it a slow to medium retrieve, but with lots of rod action. It's going to cause that bait to dance and dart and go up and down, fish just like a small soft bait. And so you may not always want to create that high speed and lots of commotion. So you're matching the hatch, you're coming up in on a school, you're dropping it right into the school, you engage, you put it in, twitch, reel, pause, maybe let it sink, dance, dart, but twitch, lots of short little twitching action. You can just see how that bait's just sort of coming alive and almost looks like a soft bait, but the advantage here is if you get a bluefish or make a bunch of casts, this bait's not going to wear out like a soft bait. So the third cast, the needlefish, what I'm calling the needlefish cast, that's as easy as it gets. It's going to cast that lure out. Again, going soft in the cast just so they're not super long. These will rocket. I'm just slow and low, keeping my tip pointed toward the water, and I'm just a slow, steady crank, and that bait's just going to wobble. Now, I use this retrieve quite a bit for stripers, less so albie fishing like today, but it's a good retrieve to know, just slow and steady. If you're fishing near a rip, just a slow and steady retrieve like this as it swings into a rip. But it's just a good retrieve, and the bait's just going to have a natural wobble to it when it comes in. Now, earlier I mentioned you can fish the needlefish retrieve fast and slow. And so what I do if I'm going to fish it fast, I'll put the tip of the rod maybe 2 feet in the water, and I'm just going to reel quick. And that's going to put a quiver into that wobble action. So you've got 3 lures in one with this thing: topwater plug, a sock bait that's durable, and a deadly needlefish. Notice how I'm pointing the rod in the water. I don't want that line to touch the boat. I'm gonna walk him over the bow here. Here we are. Now that fish 2 cranks and I was tight. So this hot pink surface eraser is what I would call an attractor. Certainly no hot pink bait fish around, but there's a lot of bait, kind of overcast. And so my strategy today was to stick out a little bit and give the fish a lot of commotion. So I got my crew casting in the bow, got a rod's length of line here. And this beautiful fish, I'm gonna de-hook him quick, get him back in the water.